Why get involved? That's a question we frequently ask ourselves. I'm Stanley Robinson. For the next few moments, we'll ask people like Bill Cosby, Ben Vereen, Jane Kennedy, and a few others that very question. Why get involved? Recently in Chicago, Congressman Harold Washington was elected the first black mayor of the city of Chicago. The involvement that resulted in victory for Harold Washington started at the grassroots level. It became apparent to the black citizens of Chicago that a single vote by an individual could collectively elect the mayor of their choice for the city of Chicago. Voter registration drives were instituted, and volunteers came together to get involved with the preparations for organizing campaign offices. The effect of this output resulted in an excitement and a unity throughout the city that night on April 12th that could be felt virtually throughout the city. One place in Chicago was the main focal point, Donnelly Hall on Chicago's near south side. This was the site of Harold Washington's victory, and more importantly, the people who came together that got involved that guaranteed that victory. Our correspondent, Hanan Wajid, shared this insight with a campaign couple who worked with the Washington campaign.
Hi, Ruth and Conrad.
Hello. Good evening.
What kind of day has this been here at Washington headquarters?
It's been a very busy day, very busy day. A lot of things to do. Well, we didn't do much campaigning except for at the polls, since the last minute things to do with passing out the little leaflets and making sure people know where to go to vote. But basically, that's all it was to do today.
I was a poll watcher. I passed out leaflets. I was a passer.
What do you think about Harold Washington, a black man, being a mayor?
It is about time.
It's a good image.
I think he would be a very good mayor. I think he'll represent everybody in Chicago.
You think he'll represent the entire city?
I certainly do. I think he'll represent everyone in Chicago.
Do you think he's going to have a difficult time having the ward leaders who left and went over to the Republican side? Do you think he's going to have a difficult time getting them back into his camp, giving...
Well, the ward committeemen and the aldermen are Democratic. I think once he wins as a Democrat, they will have no choice but to fall in line with the party.
What do you think about that, Conrad?
People do value their jobs, and with that in mind, if there's a commander-in-chief giving out orders, those who value their jobs will follow the orders. That's about it. I don't think anybody in the Democratic Party will do anything against Harold Washington as mayor.
Also, in this election, there are runoffs in several wards, and I think that the makeup of the city council is going to change. I think there'll be a larger percentage of liberal and independent aldermen who would be willing to support Washington on different issues, on different voting things that came up.
How do you think life in the city of Chicago will change as a result of Harold Washington being mayor?
As far as the image maker, the young people, and he has a lot of young people backing him, this will make a great image to get people to start becoming involved. It's like the beginning of a great involvement. It's been coming along all the time, but this is like the climax of it. The young people who are involved in the campaign will grow with his mayorship. And who knows, he might get 3 or 4 more times to be mayor of Chicago.
I hope that some things will become less politicized. For example, education. I hope that in Chicago, that's strictly political. I hope that will become less politicized. Washington supports a decentralized school board, and I support that also. I'm a teacher. I also am very much in favor of a civilian review board for the police department, and I think that it'll be an end to a lot of police abuse that goes on in Chicago.
Okay, Ruth and Conrad, thank you for talking with us, and we'll see you later on. This is Hanan Wajid at the Washington campaign headquarters.
All types of people got involved. White-collar workers, blue-collar workers, athletes, entertainers, and many, many more. An affair was recently sponsored by Operation Push to present the Frederick Douglass Memorial Award to Bill Cosby for his service in the cause of human rights and social justice. We shared this insight with Bill Cosby.
Why your involvement with Operation Push on the serious side? A lot of people know that you are heavily involved with a lot of causes, and Operation Push is one of your favorites. What is the basis behind that involvement?
The same reason why Harold Washington is the mayor of Chicago. I came to the first Operation Push, I guess maybe about 16 years ago. I don't know really. Saturday morning. Saw all these people on Saturday morning with the children in their arms, responding to people who were telling them what should be doing, not what should be doing, but what should be going on, and what was right. It was like a verbal newsletter. And I've always been in favor of that. Our people and all people become moved by speakers.
That's very true.
And through Operation Push, the Chicago area especially has become much hipper than the whole board across the world.
Is that
much
right?
hipper. Oh yeah, much hipper. These Chicago people don't take any stuff. You understand? They have a man. No, they have a man in office now, and they're going to watch him. And they know that he hasn't had a chance yet. You understand? And they're going to protect this man until he fails or succeeds. But in the meantime, these people, they don't back off. They don't wait for anybody. You understand? And that's why I love them. Chicago needs to be an example for Philadelphia, for Detroit, for everywhere.
Well, you hit on a key issue, Bill, with the fact that Chicago is the second largest city, and it's the second largest city out of the three major ones to have a black mayor now. Do you see Chicago as a central focal point now going into the national elections coming up soon? Or how much bearing do you think? I know it's a loaded question from my side, but what do you think about that?
I think that across the board, the number of black Americans who are eligible to vote, as opposed to the number of black Americans who have registered, and those who have not registered, is so loaded that if we gave you the numbers, you'd find so many black Americans who have not registered to vote that if they did just register, you find out it's just not Chicago, it's black America.
I understand.
Yeah. But Chicago is ultra important because of the voter registration. In the state of New York, there are 900,000 unregistered black Americans.
900,000.
900,000. I'm not talking about little children, I'm talking about eligible people. And these black Americans have not registered to vote.
That's just in one city. One state.
No, state.
One state now.
State.
We've got 50 states. So what you're saying is then, with that type of push just in one state, if the move went on a national level to get more black people,
of course,
we could do it.
Of course. Not only we could do it, but you see, let's say I make $10 million a year.
Okay.
And the black American standing next to me makes $5,000 a year. Now, when we step in to pull the lever, he's just as powerful as I am.
That's a good point.
Thank you.
All right. Listen, Bill, thank you very much.
I'll see you.
All right.
I don't consider...
Jane Kennedy, co-chairperson of the affair honoring Bill Cosby, gave us this insight on involvement.
I am a member of the Push International Trade Bureau because I think it is something that is effective and is instrumental in so many different terms. We as people have to learn to support one another and stick together. I think one of the problems that we have had with trying to achieve different successes in whatever business we try to endeavor in is because we disseminate. Like Bill Cosby was saying tonight, we become I's instead of we's. And anytime we can support one another in our efforts, it also benefits you. It's never anything that you're just giving out time for someone. It's very beneficial because we as a people need to be supported by one another. All of the projects that I do, I don't think that they would mean much of anything if I didn't have the people behind me. So this is something that I give back to try and help other people. Just because I'm producing a television film or a feature film or whatever it is, it's not only to make money and to get me involved in the industry, it's to provide opportunities for more people to work. Push International Trade Bureau has far-reaching fingers. Jesse Jackson has far-reaching fingers, and they can touch everybody's life in one form or another.
Reverend Jesse Jackson, president of Operation Push, which was one of the many organizations behind the voter registration drive, sees the same type of involvement continuing on a national level.
I think there are a couple of things that must happen. We're moving now from electing a mayor to protecting a mayor, because once he's in, they'll be trying to cut him down at every level. Also, there's a shift from campaigning to governing. But beyond that, the spirit of Chicago is pouring over into other parts of the nation. Across the South, there are still about 3 million unregistered black voters. We want to register 2 million of them by October of 1984. By so doing, we will elect about 15 black congresspeople. We will retire Bo Weevils. We'll retire the likes of Jesse Helms and Strom Thurmond. We could change the political basis upon which decisions will be made about who should run. I think that Harold Washington's candidacy became very viable when black registration went from 400,000 to 600,000. A black candidate would become viable if registration in the South increased another 2 million.
Wow. I know that coming up in July, it will be the National Convention. I think it's the 12th National Convention for Operation Push. Is that going to be one of the main thrusts for that?
July 24th through 30th in Atlanta, Georgia. The theme of the Push Convention will be Black America, a people whose time has come. And there'll be a lot of focus on our economic development as well as our political empowerment.
Well, I think that one key factor in the whole movement here in Chicago was the fact that you took on the responsibility to get out there and let our people know that it's not a mute factor. If you vote, it can make a big difference.
Every vote counts. Everybody's somebody.
Congressman John Conyers of the state of Michigan shares insight on the impact of Harold Washington's victory and its possible effect on the 1984 presidential elections.
Well, first of all, the main lesson that has come out of this campaign is one that it seems to me that many of the Democratic national leadership have failed to comprehend. And that is the simple fact that Harold Washington's campaign was a popular one. It spoke to the needs, the issues, and the important problems of the day. That is what allowed him to get 94% of the black vote and 15% of the white vote. It wasn't because his skin was black. It wasn't because of his hair or color or anything else. It was because he was saying the right things and he was dealing with the correct issues. And because of that, he was able to mobilize. Now, we have a presidential race going on in which the candidates are talking the usual political rhetoric. It's boring. Nobody is seriously interested in it. So we need someone to come in and focus the presidential race into the real needs of how we create work, how we eliminate joblessness, how we make our cities safer, how we discontinue the build-up toward war. These are serious questions, and they take hard, complicated answers for which which we are not getting any at the present time. Hence, we are going to run a candidate of our own in the Democratic Party. To me, it's unconscionable to be thinking that there's anything wrong with that.
The involvement of the black citizens of Chicago, as well as white liberals, has mushroomed from the grassroots level of Chicago to international scope. Arnold Raphael, a London correspondent in the U.S. on a journalistic fact-finding tour, gives us this insight from the other side of the world.
Thank you very much. It's been a fascinating experience. For one thing, that the British and the people I write for in Africa have very little close understanding of the complexity of American politics. But this campaign, I think it's fair to say this, that this campaign has attracted more press publicity in the United Kingdom and in our newspapers in Africa than any other mayoral campaign in the United States. So far as my readership is concerned, that is the readership in Zimbabwe, Kenya and Zambia, the result will be seen yet as another manifestation of, Afro-American advancement. And all right, you might say that they look upon it from selfish reasons, because the more black representation on Capitol Hill, the more black representation in such influential cities as Chicago, the more it's going to help them. And by God, they need help. They need development assistance, they need technical assistance, they need people, educated black Americans to go out and help them. So when you get somebody like Washington being elected mayor of an important city like Chicago, it'll give a tremendous thrill to people out in Africa and will amount to tremendous interest too in Britain.
You are also a correspondent for the BBC on an independent level, I understand. What is the general climate of persons outside of the United States relating to some of the racial overtones that were developing early in the campaign? What was the view from the other side of that whole side of the election?
Well, when the campaign started, and you must remember that, of course, we wouldn't get the reports in detail that would you get here, but we thought that Washington's candidacy would provoke a tremendous white backlash here, and there were fears of a great deal of violence, much more than just perhaps the natural resentment of the whites. But what has been quite interesting for me to discover is the way the whites have reacted. Of course, there have been incidents, and they've been reported in Britain and in Africa, but generally speaking, the way that the whites have moved to support Washington, perhaps not quite so enthusiastically as the black community would like, but still there is a groundswell now, a reaction in his favor, and my impression is that some of the whites here in Chicago want to give him a pretty fair run to see how he goes, and that the animosity and the fear has somewhat evaporated.
Well, Arnold, I could just go on and talk to you about what the various views are of the people on the other side feel about the United States, but as we all know in the business, our time has run short. How long are you going to be in the United States?
Oh, just for another couple of weeks now. I've been to Washington, and I'm going to Los Angeles, and I'm going up to New York on my way home to talk to people at the United Nations.
The involvement in the election of Harold Washington had local as well as national participation. Former Vice President Walter Mondale and Senator Richard Newhouse were just two of the many local supporters. Senator Richard Newhouse, election night coordinator at Dalby Hall, spoke the words that the whole world was waiting to hear.
It's going to be a tight race, folks, but we'll take 23,000 votes, and that's what we're looking at right now. So we ask you to be patient, stay with us. We'll take a little bit. We'll be back to you with further announcements. Thank you very much.
Our correspondent, Melvyna Gaynor, shared these thoughts with Senator Richard Newhouse, a staunch supporter of Harold Washington from the beginning.
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm feeling better every minute. From what we can see on the exit polls, we're doing very well. And shortly after 7 o'clock, I predict that we'll probably be able to say we're a winner. Then we'll go on to celebrate tonight, and tomorrow we'll get ready to run the city of Chicago.
You think, what does Washington have on the agenda?
Well, there's several things that are very serious. First of all, we have to deal with the state legislature because it's obviously going to need a tax from the state in order to carry on city services. We'll have to work very hard at that, but we do expect that to come about. Secondly, we'll have to put in place a team that runs the city. And I'm on the transition team. We'll be working very hard at that also.
Oh, that's good. I know with you on the transition team that we'll have some real good people in office.
I'm going to vote for you.
Oh, gee. Tell me something. You were pretty active with the campaign, weren't you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, how did it go?
I was on the steering committee, as I'm on the transition team, and of course I was on the advisory board. The campaign was not on the level that we'd like to have conducted it, but it was on the level that we had to conduct it, and we think we did very well. The thing we wanted to get across to the city, the thing that was important was that we intend to run a city with an open government that everybody could take part in. And I think that people are listening to that message finally, in spite of all the other negative rhetoric.
I think so, too. I think the election polls will show that the people of the city of Chicago are ready for some responsible management, and they're ready for a mayor who's going to unify the city. Could you tell me, Senator Newhouse, what have you got to say for the young kids who will be getting up tomorrow morning and looking on television and seeing their new mayor?
I'm saying to the young kids who are looking at this new mayor, even those who don't live within the city, that we think that you finally have the kind of image that you can look forward to, and we hope we're preparing the way for you to run not only the city, but to run the world. That's what it's all about.
Thank you very much, Senator Newhouse. It's been good talking with you. You have a good evening.
Grayson Mitchell, Mayor Washington's press secretary, who has been with the campaign from the very beginning, was also on hand that night. Here's our correspondent, Hanan Wajid, reporting from Donnelly Hall.
We understand that Harold Washington is going to win by a 55% margin. Do you go along with that projected percentage?
Well, those projections are based upon exit polls. The campaign did its own exit polling, and those numbers are fairly consistent. We see ourselves ending up with between the low 50s and mid 50s. The exact number is difficult to call until all the votes have been counted. Okay. We're very optimistic, though.
With Harold Washington as mayor, how do you see the city of Chicago changing?
Well, I think the most important aspect to Harold Washington's administration in the city of Chicago would be political reform. That's really what his campaign was all about. Being able to open up government to people, being able to, for the first time in this city in a very long time, have neighborhoods and have all ethnic groups feeling as if they are part of the city process and not locked out.
Can we expect to see these changes in terms of a time frame? How long do you think it should be before the citizens of Chicago can see some evidence of the reform?
Well, it's very difficult to draw an exact timeline on that. It depends greatly upon the speed with which he's able to move into City Hall. The first priority will be the fiscal integrity of the city, as he stated on many occasions. And I think it's going to take some patience, but the congressman is very committed to making the changes he's promised on the campaign trail. I think he'll make them as soon as it is feasible and wise to do so.
In terms of those ward leaders who, if we can say, defected from the Democratic Party, once Harold Washington is in office, do you see them lending their support?
The congressman has invited everybody. He laid down the gauntlet yesterday and said he will forgive everybody in the Democratic Party and Jane Byrne and Bernard Epton. After tonight, the congressman will be about the business of trying to heal the city and bring everybody together. There'll be no vindictiveness and no grudges held.
Have they accepted his invitation thus far?
Well, there's been no formal invitations transmitted, but I'm certain in spirit, as of yesterday, Mr. Epton did. And we see no reason why Mrs. Byrne will not do likewise.
Reggie Theus of the Chicago Bulls basketball team has these feelings about involvement and Chicago.
Well, first of all, I believe deeply in getting involved in the city. If I was in Cleveland, I would try my hardest to get involved in the city that I'm in. Giving back to the city that gives so much to me is what I believe in.
And entertainer Ben Vereen shares these thoughts.
You know, we haven't got enough black operations in the world that are supporting the people and the needs of the people, especially needs of the black people and people and the minorities. PUSH is that sort of operation. PUSH is the beginnings of something great. in this country and in this world. And if we as a people collectively get together and support PUSH, we can push it over the top. So therefore, I am here to help push it a little bit closer up the mountain, as we all have come together. Bill Cosby and the various celebrities around and the athletes have come to say that we want the voice to be heard of PUSH. You see, because once we stop hearing that voice, then we stop hearing anything of the progress of our people and of the minorities of the world. So therefore, PUSH is very important to us.
Reverend George Reddick of Operation PUSH sums up the involvement which started out on the local level and is quickly gaining more and more momentum as the 1984 presidential election begins to take shape.
The central, east, central, and midwestern states, what we traditionally call the midwestern states, were in fact with their large cities, etc., all the way, of course, from Kansas City to Detroit, within Chicago. They were critical in the determination of this. So we will continue to encourage blacks to register and vote. Throughout the South, we'll do that.
The old adage of, it's better to love and lose than not to have loved at all, is but the tip of the iceberg. To love, to grow, to exist is to be involved. The most important involvement is change, and change will take its course just as each day changes to the next. Why get involved? To guide the direction of change. Thank you for joining us. I'm Stanley Robinson.